This video is focused on strategies for filling out the pitching side of the Scoresheet lineup card. Let's start with the rotation. If you do not use the Prefer to Face column, then the order you list your starting pitchers in will determine who gets 2 starts that week if more than one pitcher has 2 starts available. So you do want to make sure to list your best pitcher in the number 1 spot, and your 5th starter should be listed in the number 5 spot. The hook column tells the program when to pull a pitcher, and is simply the number of runs that pitcher has allowed, plus half the runners currently on base that pitcher is responsible for. Please note that unearned runs only count as half a run when figuring out a pitcher's hook number. In general, the stronger your bullpen, the lower you can make your starters' hooks, and the weaker your bullpen, the higher you probably want to make the hooks, since with a weak pen you probably want your starters to get all their innings in. Most Scoresheet owners use hooks of between 4 and 6.5 for their starters. Though if I have a deep bullpen, I sometimes go as low as a 3 for my 4th and or 5th starters. The hook for ace comes into play if you have a closer listed, his earliest inning has been reached, and it is a Scoresheet save situation. I generally use a 2 to 3 for my hook for ace if I have a top-notch closer, or maybe a 3 or 4 if my closer is a little shaky. I don't use less than a 2 because I figure if my starter has gone 7 or 8 innings without allowing more than 1 run, then there is a good chance he had a great outing in real life, and I want to keep him in the game as long as possible. The minimum number you can give for a regular hook for pitcher in your rotation is 3, but you can use a hook as low as 0.25 as your hook for ace if you want. The Prefer to Face teams columns are used for 2 reasons. Either to target your left or right-handed pitchers against teams that seem to be weak against that type of pitcher, or to target your best pitchers against your main divisional rivals. Looking at your league's webpage to see other teams' records against right-handed and left-handed starting pitchers comes in handy when deciding on the use of that column. Be aware, though, that if you list a team in a pitcher's Prefer to Face column, and you do face that team during the week, then that pitcher, if he has 2 starts available, will start twice for you that week, even if a higher listed pitcher also has 2 starts available. Bullpen pitchers can be pulled into the rotation if necessary. When looking for a pitcher to start, the program ignores all of the strategy columns. Those are only used when a pitcher is coming into the game as a reliever. When looking for a starter, the program simply reads down the list of names in the order they are listed. So you want to make sure that whoever you really want to be the first pitcher used as a starter if necessary is listed on line 1, the pitcher you want used second listed on line 2, etc. Strategies for reliever hook numbers vary greatly among Scoresheet managers. Some use a low hook so that a pitcher can't totally blow a game. Others use a high hook so that if a pitcher has a bad outing, he uses up all his innings in one game. In general, though, I think the same rule applies as for starter hooks. The stronger the pen, the lower the hook number you can afford to use. But you might want to experiment with hooks. As I said, that's one column that there is really no agreement among Scoresheet managers on what is best to use. For earliest inning, I generally give my best 2 relievers an earliest inning of 6 or 7, assuming I also have a closer listed. That way they'll come into the game as a setup man, meaning they will only be used if the team is not more than 3 runs behind, or if your team is not way ahead. For my 3rd and 4th best relievers, I generally give an earliest inning of 4, and the rest of my relievers I give a 1. Now remember, pitchers will never come into a game before the earliest inning you give them, so don't give late innings to all of your relievers or you'll be stuck using pitcher AAA early in the game if you need a reliever. Just as it reads, the rank as a reliever column is used to determine who comes into the game. So simply give your best reliever a 1, your second best a 2, etc. On my lineup cards, most pitchers do not have a big difference in their rank as a reliever versus right-handed or left-handed batters. After all, the program only looks at the upcoming batter, and it may be that the next 2 batters after that will have the platoon advantage against that type of pitcher. So, as you can see here, I do have Zemiah ranked number 1 against righties and number 2 against lefties, but it's not like I have him 1 against righties and 6 against lefties just because he is a right-handed pitcher. For closer, most managers use an 8 as an earliest inning, though if you do list 2 closers, you might want to give one an earliest inning of 7. Finally, we do recommend using the defensive subsection if you have a bench player who has a much better range or tends to commit less errors than your starter at that position. Some owners also use the defensive subsection to save at bats for their starters. I hope this, and also the batting strategies video, might help you get an extra win or 2 out of your players this year. Good luck!